Today, I'm speaking with Richard Blank about call centers and how you can leverage them to grow your business, to get more information and connect better with your customer. Enjoy my conversation with Richard. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today, I'm extremely happy to speak with the CEO of Costa Rica Call Center. He's got an amazing journey. We're going to talk about how we can use call center. We're going to talk about sales, about people retention. More than anything, we're going to talk about life and entrepreneurship. Richard Blank. Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Eric, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here with you and your audience. And I told you prior to this show, your work captivated my attention. It inspired me enough to write you, and it was so good that I was able to sit through it. I think you're doing phenomenal work. And as I'm going to say before, I got plenty of fun things to share today, and I think we're going to make an amazing show.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Very kind. Now, usually when I'm talking about, Florida and South Florida, where I live, to my friend in Belgium, and they say, oh, you're living there? I said, yeah, you know what we do in Florida when we called? And they say, no. I just open the door and I walk outside. But with you in Costa Rica, I cannot say that. But before we get there, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is Richard's journey?
Well, let's go back to Northeast Philadelphia, where I graduated Abington High School back in 1991. All of my friends had opinions that were provided for them, and their destiny was somewhat pre-decided. They were going into law, medicine, architecture, engineering, and Ivy League. As a dreamer, sometimes you feel alone because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but my favorite class in high school was Spanish. So I decided to double down on that. And going to nice weather, I went to the University of Arizona and I majored in Spanish and communication. And just like yourself, Eric, I focused on public speaking. I focused on rhetoric, and I needed some special sauce. So I focused on nonverbal communication, micro-expression reading. Made me marketable. It gave me the experience. And so at 27 years old, when a friend of mine from college had a call center here and said, Richie, you want to come down for a couple months and teach some English? I immediately took that opportunity. And when I was there, it was only supposed to be for 2 months, Eric, but I worked with my friend for 4 years at a call center. So let's almost consider that my master's degree, my graduate school. And I shed a skin, because I realized that this is something that I could easily do. I was fascinated by the bilingual agents that were speaking on the phone with old Cisco phones without the headsets. And it was a magical environment. And I knew that I could enhance the experience, Eric, for not only the agents, but for the clients. And so in 2008, I decided to start my own call center with my wife. And we started with 1 seat and 50 hours. And here we are today, 14 years later, 150 strong.
Wow.
I could be much larger, but I reject more accounts than I accept because we're very selective here. It's a very strict Catholic country. I just want to ensure that the accounts that come in here, I can fulfill the need of the client, but also the agent would be comfortable enough to do the work.
Got it. I know you're talking about enhancing the experience of your agent. I think that what is very important in anything you do is to take care of each other first. And I have a lot of friends in the industry that do that. What is that you brought that is different, where you were focusing really on the experience of the agent that was not the case before you arrived?
What an excellent question. First and foremost, I know that I'm a guest in this country. And so I am definitely respecting their customs, their culture, and their native tongue. Secondly, I respect the fact that they are bilingual, which bears the mark of higher education. So they've shown me structure, discipline, and cognitive skills. And I'd be remiss to think that I am started them off there. No, they're coming to the table very strong. If they're brand new agents, Eric, then I can mold them. If they're older agents, then I have to get rid of some bad habits. But the one thing is fear. It's a morbid anticipation of things that haven't happened yet. If I can properly prepare them, give them the script, the rebuttals, the CRM training, if I can put all the agents on a level playing field, they can be competitive. But the biggest thing that I saw and the largest gripe that I heard are that telemarketers and call center agents, they feel like numbers sometimes. They feel like robots. let's just say they feel expendable. And the first thing that I do prior to even putting them on the phone is to know your name. I'm going to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And our clients like to invest in a lot of onboarding and training. You don't need to do it over excessive, but prior to even any sort of material training of the account, my clients allow me to do at least 2 hours worth of soft skills training. So I can go over conflict management, phonetics, semantics. I can go over certain sort of deliveries and tones, and I can work with them. So at least to give them a base foundation to grow upon. And so that is the sort of environment that we have here. The agents are not expendable. I'm only looking to delegate so I can promote them from within.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's pretty much the culture that we have here.
Very nice. I always remember to say, don't make fun of somebody with an accent because it means they speak another language.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. When you have those bilingual agents, so are you targeting people that are from a Spanish-speaking country, English? What is your target?
Well, in the United States, the agents need to have 85% or more English level. That's not including accent. I'll take a strong accent, but as long as your grammar and vocabulary and your active listening skills are there, then you could be very competent on the phone. In the United States, as you know, living in Florida, Spanish is becoming more prevalent than English. A
Yep.
lot of people are bilingual as well. So let's just assume that I can get somebody on the phone and start the call off in English. If they realize that this individual speaks Spanish and my agents get the permission to or feel it's the correct time to cross over into Spanish, this is what I have seen. Do you remember Popeye? It's almost like them eating spinach.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, their vocabulary gets expanded. They're able to use the social norms. And I've seen multiple metrics change on these phone calls. What do you mean? I've seen less phone calls made that day.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they're having longer talk times, longer conversion ratios. So each call might last a couple more minutes and they're not wasting time. These are not rabbit hole sort of calls or repeating information. They are really solidifying the relationship that they have. And I've also noticed, Darren, that the Latino market are the ones that give you the most referrals. So a lot of the business that we get is just because we've done such a great job on the first call. They cannot wait to recommend us to their friends and family. So instead of spending the majority of your day prospecting, there's a very good chance about 30% of your calls will be through referrals
Awesome.
and follow-ups. And so there's an excellent way to adjust that sort of day that you have where, as they say, you're working smarter, not harder. I say you're earning that referral. So just take a couple more minutes per call, maybe ask a follow-up question, maybe use the names more, and we'll get to those soft skills later. But I would not want an agent to give me 100 calls a day. I'd rather have it 88 calls and have every call that much more of a quality call.
Understood. Oh, that's great. You're familiar with the meetings and event industry. You yourself put some events together. So if I am a business owner, in the small business owner in the meetings and event industry, what should I know that I don't know today? And what should I think about working with call center in general? Where can I delegate? What can I delegate? And how could that type of service help me grow my business?
So many areas to it, and I can break it down for you very easily, Eric. A lot of it has to do with workforce management. A lot of people are taking non-voice omni-channel support where they're just working through emails or chat, which I think is fine if you're filling out a formula or if you're in a certain stage of a relationship. But it also, if you're not using the phone or making these calls, you're taking away any chance to do an upsell, to get a referral, or to be able to answer some of the questions that they have. So moving forward and speaking only in chat or in emails, you can custom make it a little bit more towards the client. That's number one. Number two, I also believe that if you're making outbound calls, sending an email or leaving a voicemail, why don't you take a little bit of time to do some due diligence just by looking at the website or possibly the CEO or business leaders' LinkedIn profiles. You'll get a better sense of the tone or the company culture. Maybe there was an anniversary, a promotion, or something that could, instead of sending a templated email, cold email, you can make it a little more warm and inviting, which would definitely separate you from others. and show the people that you've put just a little bit more effort into doing that. Because, Eric, I've seen a lot of the contact ratio percentages decrease because a lot of the calls are going straight to voicemail, IVR, or people are just requesting that sort of information. And that is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But if you're just going to carpet bomb these people with these templated emails, expect carpet bomb results. I mean, it's not going to be that good. So I think that you should tailor make it a little bit more. You'll probably get their attention. At least they're going to respond back to you. And in my experiences, since we've made this adjustment since COVID, the ratios weren't as large as when we were calling them and we were getting a contact ratio compared to a conversion. But I have seen the 3 to 4% increase when you are making these sort of emails, or especially voicemails, much more personable towards the company. And then finally, I believe that you should see the sort of calls that are coming in. A lot of the times, if you don't have enough staff, that could be a reason to outsource. But if you're not having enough volume because you're only working with events that happen a couple times a year, my suggestion is to have your core crew of people that are the best to answer the calls. But if there's a potential overflow, you might want to work with a blended call center, which could handle a call per minute or pay per call. And it's more of an answering service. Don't expect 100% of quality. It's probably about 80% because they're temporary agents. And so these are the sort of things where you don't want to miss that special call. And it would be worth it in that period of time just to pay a little bit extra if the queue is full and then there's an overflow that goes to either a dedicated, which is my center, or a much larger center that does blended or mixed. So you'd be able to capture all of your inquiries of your potential clients.
Understood. Now, I clearly see the part of the business, if you want, where if an existing customer had a question or something like that, and go to the call center. Are you also doing cold calling or reaching out in terms of sales for your customers?
Absolutely. That represents half of my business. Our forte is appointment setting and lead generation. A lot of times we do surveys. The inbound support, it's very important for us to do upsells or to get positive escalations where the client has a great experience.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned outbound calls, and if I may, it might take a couple minutes because this is where I believe my specialty is. But for anybody that studied speech, Eric, I believe that I cracked a code in regards to making these calls. Now, I'm not a boiler room. I'm not going to give you Wall Street closing techniques. I'm not the Wolf of Wall Street or Glengarry Glen Ross.
You're not going to sell me a pen?
I'm not going to sell you a pen. And as I say before, it's quite entertaining and these are amazing skills, but sometimes it's not the sort of profile or the tone or the sort of client or vertical that we're looking at. So allow me to give you more of a neutral sort of approach.
Yes, please.
A phone call happens where, let's say you're making a cold call. A lot of the times through hedging, just through reactions, sometimes when people will just ask how people are doing. I've seen that you get more positive reactions by using anonymity in the first 3 to 5 seconds of the call. You are allowed to say the name of the company. Like I would say, business for meetings. How you doing today? So instead of asking how Eric is doing today, you would say business for meetings. How may I help you? Hi, business for meetings. How you doing today? So I have my anonymity. I said the name of your company better than you did. And we've also seen from an action to a reaction, we've gotten some positive reinforcement where people will feel that we've called there before or know somebody there. And let's just say that you just do the cold, business to meetings. How are you today? And then the person says, great. And then there's a pause there because once again, you're not rushing. And then if you get the name, let's say they use the name Kathy, for example. Then you could say, Kathy, I'm looking to speak to Eric. Thank you very much. And then they would say to you, usually a question. What is this regarding? What is your company name? Perfect. It's the first time they gave you the buffer boomerang technique. What is this technique? Well, if somebody gives you a -1, -2, or a -3 tone, you need to reduce that tone and make it positive. You can always reset a conversation. Let's say, for an example, what is your company name? I would say, Eric, that's an excellent question. My company's name is, and send it right back to you as a positive. You buffer it by saying, that is an excellent question, name drop. Then what you do is show active listening by repeating the question. My company's name is, so they don't have to repeat it, and then land it back at them with a +2 boomerang response. What's the name of your company? That's an excellent question. My company's name is, Eric, Costa Rica's call center. And so that happens at least 10 times on a call. So expect that, especially with a gatekeeper or the decision maker. So you get past the first one. You take her -2 to a +2. You answer the name of the company, Business for Meetings. She finds it very interesting. She's definitely going to transfer the call. What happens then? Grab the gift. Kathy's going to transfer you the call. So that is the perfect time for you to give a positive escalation. Verbal. So when I get transferred over to Eric and you go, hello, this is Eric. Before I say anything, I'm going to go, Eric, I just got to let you know, Kathy was the most professional person you got working for you. Obviously, that moves me forward 3 steps in my momentum. You still don't know who I am. I got transferred to you. I still have my anonymity. And I'm not using this throughout the whole call because that's kind of shady. But at the beginning, the first taste of Richard is me complimenting this person that works with you. Then you say, thank you. This individual is great. Who are you? Another buffer boomerang. So I'd say, that's an excellent question, Eric. My name is Richard Blank. And then you would say, oh, hello, Richard Blank. Hello, Eric, which is another positive reinforcement. Then you would ask me a second one. Who are you representing? Compared to, we're good, thanks. Why are you calling? What are you selling? No. I'm reducing, calming down, and starting this thing properly. So we're in the phone call right now. Eric likes me. We're talking back and forth. You're giving me tons of buffer boomerang questions, asking me extended questions. But then it gives me a chance to talk about my business. I'll give you, this is what we do. A, B, C, and D. I at least got to rake the answer by saying, I'm sure you like at least one. And so what you've done is take it from a horizontal to a vertical. What are you talking about? I gave you 4 points. You chose one. So let's start stacking the answers. So you like A, great. Tell me more about that. So I'm not going to move to B, C, or D until we're finished. So we continue the call. Number 1, you loved. I stacked it, got a bunch of things you're interested about it. So we get to the conclusion of the call because every call starts with an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. You're finishing the call. You say, Eric, since you have me on the phone right now, do you have any final questions before I let you go? Actually, I do. Your third point, I got a question on. Great. We get to stack again. And then I finish it up with a military alphabet, of course, just to double check your email address because military alphabet is great.
Yeah.
And then finally, to tie it on the bow, when I send you the follow-up thank you email, I'm always going to include Kathy or whomever else assisted me in transferring this call because it's going to show the relationship we have, Eric, prior to doing any sort of business.
Very nice. I like it. Yeah.
That would make a perfect sort of phone call for your people from A to Z.
Absolutely. Now, going back to the first person who's picking the call, most of the time they've been trained if it's not to pass the call.
Okay.
So what if that person said, what are you calling about? Why do you want to talk to that person?
That is an excellent question, Eric. The reason that I am calling today is I'd like to share an idea with Meetings for Business. And once you like it, we can move forward. It's an easy one. I mean, obviously that tone there is not a hang up because that's fini. Call's dead. As long as you're with me, it's either a 1, 2, or 3, how I'm going to bring it back at you and throw it back at you.
It's almost like the hostage situation with the police trying to trace the call. So you have to speak and maintain the relationship for the person not hanging.
But let's look at it like this. Let's say you make 100 phone calls a day and you're only supposed to close 8 deals a day. You might pitch another 20, but then there's still another 50 people that are going to hang up on you. If you can master the first 30 seconds of a call, I'll take it. It's almost like a romantic death. You know, you died in the prime, you died on a high. I call it jumping cloud. And obviously Machiavelli wrote about it in The Prince. Kings have to listen to information. If not, you're going to stay in business very long. True. So as long as they're willing from an educated point of view, Eric, make a decision. I'm cool with that. But who's to say? I might be calling you on the day you get the puppy, or I might be calling you on the day the puppy ran away. Same Eric, different day.
Totally.
If something happens on their end, A, I don't take it personal. But B, I'm at least going to buffer boomerang you twice. I'm probably going to name drop you 3 times. I'm going to introduce myself with the most gusto that I can, and then you're going to hang up on me. And I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever, because you stay consistent. You stay consistent.
So I imagine that working in a call center is extremely stressing. It might be sometimes hard with the rejection and everything. How do you manage your team, and how do you keep them motivated and going forward?
Well, we definitely have certain goals for them to meet where they'll get games and prizes and stuff. But the beauty of what I have here, Eric, and you know this because you speak multiple languages, that this is just not a grind for them. They are getting back what they invested in their studies. And so regardless of the outcome of these calls, is first, if they're doing it with good faith and good intentions, they can weather that storm. You don't get into boxing if you can't take a hit. They know what they're getting into working at these call centers. So since there's so many options here in Costa Rica, we have HP, Intel, Oracle, Amazon, and all the large centers. It's a seller's market. If they don't like the account, they can leave. And so they are going to choose something that they'd be comfortable with, naturally knowing that there could be some sort of rejection. But in my mind, if it's not a rejection because of your performance, it's just because of the percentages and the verticals that we're calling. Is it business to business, business to consumer? You know, is it a 5-minute call? Is it a 20-minute call? These are the different types of profiled agents that you're looking for.
Right.
And as I told them before, that this is the sort of thing that if you're properly prepared, you're well rehearsed, you know your lines.
Yeah.
But Eric, check this out. A lot of the times people can be over prepared, where they become commercialized. I almost see them more as a print instead of a painting, where they become too rigid and they lose the raw side of them, and they become out of character, not in character. Because to answer your question, it's stressful. If you have character on the phone, this job is one of the easiest jobs you'll ever have, because you see it as an art form. You see it as poetry on the phone. You use the thesaurus to expand your vocabulary and to become more diplomatic on the phone. You see it as a game. And one of the things I can share with you later on the call is my micro expression reading, to where you could almost, once you see it, not unsee it, and you become a little more lucid on the phone or face-to-face conversations.
Tell me about it, especially on the phone, when you don't see the person. But personally, I really have challenges when I don't see the person, at least on Zoom, but face-to-face. That's my favorite environment. But when I don't see the person, it's not my favorite setting. So how do you do that at that moment?
Well, Eric, it's such a shame because we're so good looking that when we can't be seen, it really hurts.
Yeah, right. Especially you with the
about?
beautiful suit and tie and everything, right?
Absolutely, 100%. I'm going to walk you through some steps. And it might seem complicated, but it's really not. I mean, obviously, it's common sense, but let me at least break it down for you. Phonetics is the sound of speech. You've mastered that, of course. You speak English beautifully, and the other languages that you do, your communication is crystal clear. People talk about micro expression reading when they read body language, facial expressions, proxemics, haptics, you know, the way you move your body, mirror imaging. Great. But over the phone, we can't see these people.
Correct.
And in my opinion, that the purest form of communication would be phonetics, because congruence is where audio matches the visual, but also people could be masking their communications through their facial and body expressions. But we'll talk about that another day. Phonetics is broken down into 4 different sections. You have your tone, rate, pitch, and duration. Your tone is the one consistent variable that you have when you do some sort of expression, micro expression reading. My suggestion, and you and I both have that, our tone is confident and empathetic, where you can show compassion. Now, regardless of what the client does, I'm not even really paying attention to their tone. It doesn't work for me. My tone is what's money. This is the part, Eric, the strategy of doing mirror imaging, okay? Yep. A lot of the times, what we focus on is their speed and their pitch. Think about it like an XY chart. Me, just for argument's sake, put me to +8 here for rate and pitch. We do this every 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Why? Because that's considered the average attention span. If I'm on a 10-minute phone call, I could read you 20 times. What am I reading? If you're going faster, slower, louder, or softer, why is that important? I don't know you. And in the first minute, I'm just starting to mark how you speak. But by the 5th minute in, I can understand if there is some sort of spike or dip in regards to how you speak. Now, that can always be manipulated. A tone, rate, and pitch can be manipulated. Your ultimate tell sign is your answering speed. That is something that is done subconsciously. That's why you were mentioning about the police and things like that, asking a question at a certain time. Well, obviously, they want to read you with your 5 questions, how you answered it. And then when they start showing the evidence, your tone, rate, and pitch might be the same still. You're still putting a strong front, but you're definitely answering at a different pace. So what happens then? That is the ideal time for you to ask a tie-down question, or they call it a pin-down question, or a clarification question. Makes sense, right, Eric? Sounds good, right, Eric? Eric, for my clarification, was it 1, 2, 3, or ABC? Clarification. We're working from home now. What happens is you might hear a dog in the background,
right,
a child in the background, music, or as you can hear here, sometimes a car in the background. My suggestion for your audience is to inadvertently and passive aggressively let them know how much you love dogs. It's a Me Too technique. So woof, woof, woof. Eric, love dogs. What's your dog's name? My dog's name is Fluffy. Sounds like a nice dog and a loud dog. And so you would obviously know how much I love Fluffy. Put Fluffy outside. We talk about that for a couple minutes. And from the straight line theory, we get right back into where we need to be again. But don't tell me, regardless of what I'm pitching and what you're listening to, that connection that we had about Fluffy, where I didn't tell you to shut the dog up, or the dog, excuse me, your dog, no. Strategically, I love your dog. What's the dog's name for the follow-up question? And I just anchored you. What are you talking about? I got you so good talking about Fluffy, and we're talking about your dog, that the remaining portion of this call is more of just answering your question so we can close the deal. And mind you this, if you have a moment like the Fluffy Me Too technique, you're going to be readjusting your micro expression reading because now you're really comfortable with Richard. Now you're saying my name during the call, which means we're connected, which means we're doing another read. You might be speaking slower and lower because I'm your boy and we're not in a rush anymore. And so fall on that sword. There's no I'm sorry's, no excuse me's. It's for my clarification during those sort of moments. And those are the sort of soft skills, Eric, that can reduce talk time on the phone, okay? That can reduce any sort of ego defense mechanism. And it's going to show the client that you're willing to take the hit. You're willing to clean the spill, pay for the bill, and get out of there. You know, you don't want to cause any trouble. And it's okay, because the last thing you want to do is say, excuse me, could you repeat that? Because you don't want to put the people on any sort of defensive.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, gosh, you need to have very active listening skills.
Of course.
And also you want to take notes of this. You want to know that the next time you call that person, or that your customer is going to call the person, they have a dog called Fluffy. So you're talking about CRM. Are you basically integrating into the CRM of your client? So let's say that I have an events agency and I want to reach out to 50 prospects.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you access to my CRM, or I have to adapt to your CRM. How does that work concretely?
Vice versa. I mean, a lot of the times people have a plug and play. A lot of the times as well, I'm able to use my telephone system to save them money on certain calls. Maybe my CRM might be a little bit more intricate than theirs. And that's just fine. My only request is if I have to use somebody else's system, that my supervisors would have access to the recordings. I don't need to see all the sensitive information on the list. That's yours. but I at least want to be able to do some sort of quality assurance or quality control of the agents that we have. But Eric, I got to ask you a question because you were mentioning earlier about the intensity of paying attention with active listening. You speak multiple languages. I speak Spanish as well. Obviously, English is not your first language. So when you're having a conversation with me, dealing with clients, and you're completely bilingual, you're the man, you still need to, compared to your native tongue, do a little bit more intense active listening. Correct. For periods of time. So in my mind, besides being a professional doing active listening, you're almost doing the triple. You're juggling and biting the apple. And so in my opinion, it almost forces the English second language or the bilingual agent to have more active listening. Interesting. Because of that. Yeah. And so, as I say before, people get into hedging. Well, they'll just do okay. And my suggestion is to repeat something every now and again, or to have checkpoints just to make sure that we're following along. Because you could do, it's almost like desert pitching, where you talk so much, there's not an oasis. I mean, where's the time to rest? You're not giving someone the time to breathe or to digest this stuff. And so in regards to integration with their CRMs, that's fine. But another thing that I request from my clients is that I get to add the notes section. Just don't give me drop downs. Just don't say not interested. Sometimes the better phone calls you have is when you get an exit interview. Not saying they're going to bash your company, but they might give you 5 reasons why they chose the competition, or they might make a suggestion for you to enhance your services.
Well, actually, I have a friend when a customer is leaving or when they're not buying from them, and he's the CEO. He wants to make those phone calls and he wants to understand, and so that he can retrain his sales force afterwards.
And I bet you he's retained some of those clients.
Absolutely.
First, they probably may say, the boss call me? Absolutely. And I bet you his percentage is incredible. Yep. Oh, that's an excellent story. And I love hearing that. And that's the reason why this individual is a leader of the company. And I think that's a wonderful skill and ethical skill to add to a company.
I have one more question for you in terms of outsourcing. So I'm owner of a meeting and event company. I had 50 prospects that I wanted to call 2 years ago. And then today, COVID happened. People don't work in the office anymore. They change. How do you go about finding the information to call somebody who might still be with the company, but is not working in the building anymore?
The fact that it's a list of 50 makes me feel great because I can marinate the list. There are so many different ways that you can cross-reference information, from email addresses to their past positions to phone numbers. And then if it's a stretch, you can just find people that have worked with them and reach out to them. It just might take a little bit more effort, but then it gives you a chance that when you get the information to contact that person, you do the positive escalation that this coworker of theirs had recommended. And so is it more labor intensive? Yes. But then again, look on the bright side. If you were just making these phone calls without any sort of research behind it, you probably wouldn't have uncovered something. And then again, you might do a self-wrap, Eric, where if you are able to get in touch with them, a lot of people are like, wow, how did you find my phone number? That's how important your account is for us. You didn't even pitch anything yet. You're letting them know, I found you after 2 years. And you were worth my time because I just wanted to touch. How are you doing? How's the family? Let me tell you how I'm doing, my health. Yeah. It's great to hear from you again.
Yeah.
Still standing. You could have that sort of moment.
Love it. Love it. And that's something totally applicable for anybody on their business. I love it.
I love those phone calls because you can get real with somebody for a minute and you could share some sort of picking yourself back up moment. Someone could recommend a book to you. Someone could tell you how to work out a little bit better or how to be nicer to your significant other or what they have done to improve themselves. For myself, it made me a lot more humble during COVID. So anytime I got to have a ship passing in the night and have a dinner with a friend or a colleague or getting somebody on a phone call, or even this time with you, Eric, you treasure this. I mean, what just happened? I had a couple friends that didn't make it through COVID, and these were young men and women. And so you have to stop from time to time and realize your priorities in life. And as much as we're successful and we are comfortable and we have the luxury to do certain things, the most important thing for me in my life is my family, my wife, my good friends, myself. And it's really made me more appreciative of the small things. And I know that makes sense to not only you, but to your audience. And I'm sorry to get sentimental for a minute, but
and you said it very well, the right tone with the right speed. That's excellent.
I'm real, man. And it's just one of those things that I just take to heart during how you and I both survived and came out better after COVID.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Richard. One last question I'd like to ask you today that had nothing to do with call center is how this passion for pinball came. Because I was telling you, when I was living in Belgium as a student, I absolutely loved, I spent hours playing the Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man pinball, not the arcade game, the pinball and by the way, anybody's listening, if you find it, please call me because I'm really looking for that for years. But how did this passion of you came and how many pinball machines you have now?
I grew up in the 70s and 80s.
The best.
Going to an arcade back in the day was great. It was a fun experience. And I don't know if you remember the TV show, but Ricky Schroeder was in a show called Silver Spoons. And they had a Pac-Man machine, a Tempest machine, a Gorf machine, and a pinball machine. And every kid in the 80s wanted that Silver Spoons game room. And so fast forward to today, I'm a business owner, doing well for myself. And all of a sudden, I found my first pinball down here. And a hobby became an obsession. And I am able to find classic Rockolas, jukeboxes, and pinball machines. I currently have 13 machines.
Wow.
You probably know most would be Jurassic Park. Everyone seems to love that one the most. Last Action Hero I got, NBA Fast Break, Doctor Who, you name it. My oldest machine is a 1976 Bally's Freedom. And I restore them.
You do it yourself?
Absolutely. And you know what pains me? Because these machines are in terrible condition. People leave them in bodegas and garages. Right. They don't care. So I'll buy them from as little as $250 up to $500. There's a place called Marco's Specialties online where you can order any sort of part for it. Just gave them a plug. And it's very easy for me to get the pieces of these machines. And so I'll know a couple guys down here that are electricians. And so they'll come by and check out the boards and put things together.
That's awesome.
And little by little, they work. Now, these machines are older than the agents that work here. So I believe in gamification. So Eric, instead of smoking a cigarette or sitting by yourself or going to Facebook, we're hanging out in the arcade downstairs. And so a great time is to hang out with your boss and to play these games or to experience it. But this is what happens in the game room. People make friends. And when you have a friend at a company, the chances of you leaving reduces. It also allows you a chance to let off steam and to build up your energy again. And I've seen people also fall in love in the arcade. Where, someone could be smoothed by the Pac-Man machine. And so a lot of the times it's an excellent bridge for people that work in different accounts to meet one another. And also it's right in the front. So any clients that come to visit me, they have to walk through it. And it shows how I treat my people. And it also shows that they don't have any video games for their people. So come on, step up the game. And it's just part of our culture here. We work hard, but we also play hard. And me being a child still, a 50-year-old child, the greatest thing for me is to supply a huge free play retro arcade game room, which I've always wanted. And fortunately, I have the space for it. So I packed my first floor with an air hockey table, a bunch of machines, and it really makes a great environment. And I'm not done. I'm going to find your Pac-Man machine for you. It will take some time, but I'll definitely find it.
Awesome.
But when you and I speak next year, ask me how many machines I have then. I might need to rent another.
I will, and might I take the plane just to come and play in the game room.
We would love for you to come visit us here at Costa Rica and to walk the roads at the center and to show you some places. Costa Rica is a beautiful country.
Yeah,
We have a democratic society here. We have a 95% literacy rate. So all the money got put back into education. There's no standing army. I'm an hour away from any beach on the Pacific or the Atlantic side. We have volcanoes and hot springs and the flowers and the plants and the fruit. I mean, I'm living in paradise. And so, Eric, if you can get past your parents' guilt, you can live anywhere in the world. So I've been here for 21 years. I moved here at 27. And the day that I walked off the plane, I realized it's not like I didn't want to go home. I was home. And so
that's awesome.
I made a life for me here.
Congratulations. And one day, if you want to change call center, I think that the Destination Marketing Organization of Costa Rica will be very happy to have you as their ambassador. Richard, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you,
I look forward to seeing you in real life and play the Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man pinball machine with you.
I cannot wait.
Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and share those great insights. I love it because that's something that we can all apply in our business as soon as we finish listening to this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please follow me on LinkedIn or join the Facebook group on www.eventbusinessformula.com/podcast. And if you find any insight that you want to share with your network, please do so. It's very appreciated. Thank you. Bye-bye.